welcome to the 412 Canada podcast. Thanks for joining us. My name is Kim Hutchins, and at 412, we're equipping the church for greater influence through serving. 412 is a ministry of Faith Baptist Church in Huntsville, Ontario. We are so excited to be able to continue to equip you through our podcast and YouTube. And today I'm excited to bring you Jeremy Best. Jeremy is on staff at Faith St. Thomas and has been a youth pastor for 19 years. He's also been the director of FEB Youth for 7 years. He's married to Angela, has 2 boys and a foster daughter. They are working towards adoption. In this episode, we're going to chat about how to build resiliency in your kids. Welcome, Jeremy.
Hi, it's good to be here.
It's so good. I'm glad that you're able to come up and join us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's been a while since we've chatted.
Yeah, it's been a couple of years now.
I think so. Yeah. And even we did a podcast episode, an audio one, but that was
Right.
even a while ago too.
But yeah, that was still maybe, I think that may have still been pre-COVID. So.
I think so. Yeah,
Well,
I definitely think so. So a lot's changed in your world,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Tell us what's new.
Yeah, so since then we've had a foster daughter in our home for the last year and a half or so.
Yeah.
We're working towards adopting her.
Yeah.
And so having a baby back in the house at 40 is different.
Yes.
Yeah, I think there's a reason why God intended us to have kids when we were younger. It's way more tiring this time around, but she's awesome.
Good.
And we have our 2 older sons, Elijah and Ezra. They've been phenomenal with it. So.
And that's so great for them too, right?
They're really good big brothers.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's awesome. Well, and I know today we wanted to talk about resiliency.
Yeah.
Right. So, what is it? Right. Can you give me a definition, or what?
The simplest way to talk over it's we might call it toughness or grit.
Yeah.
Right. It's the idea of being able to come back and recover from difficulties.
Mm-hmm.
So when hard stuff hits, are we able to bounce back?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Are we able to actually overcome it, or do we just get crushed by it?
Yeah.
And obviously, as parents for our kids, we want them to be we want to train them to work through these things in life. We know life comes hard.
Yeah.
We know it's just there can be really hard times that come for them. How do we train our kids to conquer these things on their own, especially apart from us? Because one thing to do it for them.
Yeah.
But how do we train them to do it apart from us?
Okay.
That's the key.
Yeah. And so, what about a helicopter parent? How does that affect resiliency in kids?
Yeah. So. Youth ministry for 19 years. I've seen my share of them.
Yeah.
It's not the dominant theme, but it's definitely increased over the years. And we've heard that definition before. The helicopter parent is to give it some clarity, is the parent who refuses to let their kid do anything on their own, refuses to let their kid fail.
Yeah.
Right. They're gonna no matter what, I'm gonna protect little Johnny, little Susie, and I'm gonna make sure nothing bad enters their world, and no failure comes anywhere near them. Right. Yeah. We've done. I remember doing one of the first missions trips I did, and each student had to come in for an interview with me and one of the people on our missions team, and more just to put the kid through the ringer than anything else.
Yeah,
we want them to be serious about it, so it was a little bit scary. And there was one student coming in, she's 17, and she came in with her mom.
Really?
And I'm something, and I knew the kid, the student, she was fine on her own. Mom wasn't fine with her being on her own.
Really?
And that was the problem. And you can see the student was visibly awkward and embarrassed because mom was there.
Yeah.
Right. And mom would answer for her and speak for her, and that type of thing happens all the time. I'm sure if you talk to teachers in the school system, they will tell you that stuff happens all the time.
Yeah. And do you see a difference in the behavior of the kids? I know when I was directing a camp, and I had kids call me to get into the LET program. They were 13, 14. And they took the initiative. Right. They were more likely to be really great leaders as to those that their parents did all of that pre-work and really pushed them.
They're not invested in it at that point. So this is what mom or dad want me to do, and maybe they like it or maybe they don't. Yeah. But they're not owning it. Mm-hmm. Right. And so and even those kids will reach out to you themselves, mom and dad are encouraging and supporting, but ultimately it's saying, you want to do it? It's up to you. Yeah. There's that fundamental difference there that happens. Kids have to learn to be able to take that risk themselves. The simple act of picking up a phone and calling somebody to ask them, I still get scared by that stuff as an adult, right? But training kids to do that, hey, no, you can do this. It's gonna be okay. Yeah. Right. We need to give them those little steps to start moving forward.
Yeah. And what do you see the difference between now when you were a kid, right, growing up versus now? I mean, the difference in parenting styles and what you were able to do as a kid.
Yeah, I'm a kid of the 80s and 90s. I was born in 1980, And like, it was very much, and part like, I was a single parent home, so like, my mom worked, and it's like during the summers, like right now, like, the day was mine. Like,
I know,
there was
right?
no one around. It's like, my mom's basic expectations were like, if you're not gonna be home for supper, call me so I know where you're eating.
And that's
right?
really all it was,
That's
right?
it.
That's, you just check in, I'll be home at this time.
Yeah, it's gonna be fine. If it gets dark, I'm not home yet, I better have called, because I'm sleeping over at somebody's house.
Yes, yeah.
And like, you don't want to mythologize the past. We have a way of looking back at our own childhood with kind of rose-colored glasses.
Yeah,
Things were so much better in our day, and kids these days. You don't want to get into that, but I do think we've lost something, right? Cell phones have changed everything right now. Like, even as parents ourselves, like, our oldest son is 10, and I remember like last fall, like the first time he asked me, hey, can I go to the park with my buddies without mom or dad?
Yeah.
And my wife was super nervous about it.
Right?
The park is just down the street, doesn't have to cross a major road, none of that, right? It's just a 5-minute walk. She's like, is it going to be okay? I'm like, Aunt, like, when we were that age, like, we were going to the park by ourselves when we were like 6 or 7.
Yeah.
But like, it's just that, and part of it, it's like, it's a little bit nervous for him, but it's also, well, like, is somebody going to see him walking down the street and say, oh, well, they let their kid go out without any supervision, or like, so there's that plays into it for parents too, and I think like, even like letting your kids walk to school by themselves, like there's all these things that
not many people do anymore, right?
It used to be normal, and now it's, I think the world is safer than it was in the 80s times, right? But we're more nervous to do that stuff, partly because we're afraid of the risk it puts to our kids, but we're also afraid of the judgment from other adults.
It's true.
Too.
Yeah, that's very true. Well, why do you think that we as parents struggle to let our kids fail?
Yeah, I can't speak to every parent, but I can speak to how I can
speak to your own experience, right?
Because ultimately, if my kid fails, I feel like I'm failing.
Yeah, I totally speak.
Right? We get.
Don't mind me.
My friend, I remember we first put Elijah into baseball. Right?
Yeah.
And I played baseball when I was a kid. It was a big thing for me. So I probably pushed harder than I should have to get him to play. Right? He didn't like it at all.
Oh, really? He didn't like it?
He hated baseball. He's found some other sports that he kind of digs now, but baseball was not his thing. Very boring. It's boring for a little kid. I understand.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I remember the time he got his first hit, and like I was over the moon excited. He was pumped, but like he got over it pretty quick. He's like, I hit a ball. I'm like, you say that? You see my ball? Like, wait a minute, I might be a little too emotionally invested in this.
Right. It's more about you.
And like I remember like before like when we signed over baseball, like all of a sudden I'm remote. I'm like, hey, we gotta go outside. We gotta play catch. We gotta practice hitting. And like partly because I want him to get better at it, but I'm like, I don't want you to make me look bad. And that's not the right headspace. And I think we get into that so often as parents, right? Like whether it's with sports or it's helping them with the science project, right? Like the classic trope in like sitcoms, right? That mom or dad do the science fair project for them, and the kid gets busted for it, and all those kind of things. But we do that because partly we want to protect our kid, but we're also protecting ourselves because our own egos are still fragile.
It's true. Yeah, that's really good. So, and what about that? You mentioned a book when we were talking earlier. What is it? Youth Ministry 3.0. Okay, and so it talks about adolescence, the 3 tasks. And what is that?
Yeah, so the author is a guy named Mark Ostreicher. He's been youth ministry bigwig for decades now. He was a leader of an organization called Youth Specialties, runs an organization called the Youth Cartel now. He's written dozens of books. But he talks about the 3 primary tasks of adolescence as being identity, affinity, and autonomy.
Okay.
Identity, affinity, and autonomy. And each of them are unique, but all important. So, like, identity is the idea of, like, well, who am I? Right? And sorting out this question of where do I fit in the world? Who am I?
Yeah.
Autonomy and affinity. So autonomy asks, how am I unique? What makes me different? Particularly what makes me different from my parents. Right? And then affinity is where or to whom do I belong? Yeah. Right? And kids start working that stuff. I mean, I see it, my son's 10. Yeah. He's already starting to work through that stuff. Right? And so we have to give our kids space to work through each of those tasks. And as parents, part of that is about letting some rope out. Yeah. As we go. So like the first one, like identity, it's about self-confidence, about self-worth. And, what gives us confidence, right? It's succeeding on our own. Yeah. When we're given tasks that we can go and accomplish, and that starts to build confidence in the right direction. And what gets kids there, they need a strong support system. So it isn't about parents kind of washing their hands out and saying,
I know, right?
Like, you're on your own.
We just leave them. Off you go.
Yeah, it's not like total free-range parenting. Right. They still need that basic support and care, but they need to know that they've got the freedom to go and explore on their own as well.
Okay.
Knowing that mom and dad have their back, they're cheering them on.
Yeah.
But they're going to let them take some real risk along the way as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then the next one.
Yeah, so the second one, so autonomy is how am I unique? And that's, I mean, the fundamental question there is, so what makes me different from mom and dad? And where do I fit in the world? It's a tough one for parents.
It is,
Because when our kids start to pull away from us, we feel self-conscious, but then we feel afraid of that.
Yeah.
Right? So that's like oftentimes in those early teen years, like when they stop wanting to hang out with you, when they start getting influenced by other things, whether it's by media, music, and friends, all kind of stuff, we feel very nervous about all that. And I think there's a reason to be cautious and to make sure like you're stewarding that well. But that's still part of growing up. It's part of how they have to individuate themselves from you. So if they don't, they're going to be sleeping in your basement when they're 35.
I know, we don't want that.
We missed something along
I know, where did we mess up?
Right?
So keep going.
I was going to say, so they need the skills
to
face the challenges. They need competence.
Yes.
Right? And they can't develop competence if they don't have the chance to fail on their own. If they don't have the chance to go and set out on their own a little bit autonomous, right? Being by themselves. And confidence doesn't build if they don't get that. So if you go back to like the science fair analogy, right? Like hey, like, you know, mom and dad put 90% of the work into the science fair project. Hey, you got an A+ on, don't you feel great? No. They know you, like, kids aren't dumb.
They know exactly what happened there.
They know when mom and dad have bailed them out. And they either learn to say, I don't need that, or they learn to rely on it completely. Right? So we need to, like, we obviously we want to have their back, but particularly as they get older, we need to stop bailing them out and start letting them fail and succeed on their own.
Yeah, I think too, that's hard as a parent, right? I think even with my own kids, we've always taught them like how to cook and how to bake and everything, right? So then they're working on a recipe, and it is so hard not to jump in and be like, no, you do it this way. And there are many times that I jumped in and I took over, right? And you could just see that. And I was like, oh, I need to step back and just let them. And if they make a mistake, they put in too much baking soda, they'll learn from it, right? It's not the end of the world.
Tastes bad, and they're like, okay. And it's tough as a parent too, because like, so something like that, you're like, well, this isn't a big deal. I just, you know, like, we're making the muffins. We have company come over with the muffins because I'm just gonna fix this.
Yes.
Right, and we're like, it's just a small thing. This isn't a big thing. This isn't a big life moment. But those smaller decisions that we take for granted are the building blocks for the bigger stuff later. They need to learn from those experiences so they can wade through the larger ones later. So like, I've seen the opposite happen, where like kids have been completely insulated by their parents until they've gone to university, and then all of a sudden they move out and like life hits them at 10 million miles an hour, and hitting all these things for the first time. And like just the act of like walking to the laundry room by themselves has kids like calling home in tears. Right? And you can prepare them. I mean, like moving out is always gonna be traumatic, no matter what. But you can prepare them well for that. And so they've had as many of those experiences, still within the broader shelter of your home, right, and your influence, but with some independence. So when they are fully independent, that it just doesn't all hit them like a ton of bricks.
Because we want them to succeed.
Of course.
Right? Yeah, we do want them to do
like
well.
We all want the kids to launch out and to find their way in the world, and we want them to make money so they can support us in our old age. Right? But like, if we like keep them too close, they're never going to get there.
Yeah, that's good. Was there anything else in that book?
So the third one is affinity.
Okay,
This is actually the one that Oestreicher would say is the most important, right? And this is like, so to whom or to where do I belong, right? And particularly when kids hit, especially the high school years, girls tend to hit a little bit earlier than guys. You know, like girls might start around 13-ish, really diving into this. Guys might be a little bit later, 14, 15. But the affinity side of things is they start to try on different identities, right? And so maybe you've seen this with kids, right? Where like, I remember like one girl in my high school, this girl Kristen. Every year of high school, she came back with a completely new identity.
Really?
Like, she was the goth kid one year. She was the preppy kid one year. She was the jock kid. She was the punk. Like
just seeing what fit, right?
Just trying things out, right? So, like, who am I? Like, maybe things in her life have changed enough each year that she's like, no, I got to put on a whole new identity. And it's, as parents, when we see her, like, all of a sudden your kid comes home wearing all black one day, right? Or they cut all their hair off or grow their hair out or whatever it is, it can be really easy to overreact to that stuff.
Oh my goodness,
it's like, you know, my little kid has now all of a sudden come up, like, looking like, what do I do?
What happened?
Yeah. Try not to freak out. But, like, they're trying to gain some independence over their identity and figuring out, where do I fit? Right? And we want to help coach them and guide them through that. but we can't just like you can't always just say no, like and cut it off and say like. A mentor of mine when I was growing up, I was lucky enough to be in this Bible study with a bunch of my buddies through my last 3 years of high school, led by one of our youth leaders, Tim.
Yeah.
And for me, especially me growing up in a single parent home with my mom, like watching Tim like be a dad to his kids was actually one of the first places I saw like healthy fathering. I remember him talking. There were a couple of us in the group that were like that. And I remember him talking to us about his boys. He's like, by the time they turn 16, he's like, my task as dad is pretty much done. I'm like, that didn't register.
Yeah.
But he's like, at that point, he's like, they're making the decisions for themselves. I hope they'll come to me for help, and I'll give advice.
Yeah.
It's like, but they've got to go and make the decisions. He's like, I should have imputed all of my wisdom by that. And we've done all the parenting. By that point, they've got to go and start living on their own. He's like, but the advantage is, he's like, they've still got another couple years of high school. So they can have that freedom, but still underneath their roof. So if things do crash, they've got a safe landing.
They're still there, yeah.
Right?
Oh, that's really
But then
good.
they're ready when another a year or 2 years beyond that, when it does come full independence, they've had some time where they've already, they've been setting their own curfew. They've been whatever else it looks like. And it's every parent, every kid is a little bit different. But I thought that was a really good kind of general guide. Will say, okay, by the time they hit 16-ish, you should be pretty much done the core of your task, and your relationship with your kids begins to shift from parent to advisor.
Yeah. Right? Well, and it certainly makes for when they're younger, you're more intentional, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, so like when they're, let's say up to like age, I mean my younger son is 7, so like we're up to like kind of age 6 or 7, they're with you 24 hours a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now at 7, he'll go off and play with his buddies in the other yards, and
he's got a little more freedom.
Yeah, so that like those first kind of feelings of freedom. Whereas my 10-year-old now, like he walks out the door sometimes. Like we have like a bunch of neighbors that are all right beside us, so he'll walk out the door. We don't necessarily know what house he's going to.
No.
Right, but he knows if he's going to be going into somebody's house to come and let us know, or if they want to go to the park and come and talk to us. But it's just that little bit more rope, right? And another year and a bit, he'll be in junior high.
Yeah.
And so it'll be time to like, okay, now he should be ready to kind of go bike around. If he's got a friend on the other side of town, he should be able to get on his bike and go over there, right? Or if he's got to go to baseball practice, he hates baseball, so it won't be baseball. If you
never know.
Maybe he can go there by himself, or we drop him off. So
it's changing.
It's a matter of the parent being conscious that, okay, each year we need to let out a little more rope, give a little more freedom, and prepare them for it.
Now, as you interact with parents, what is one thing that you found encouraging when you've talked to parents?
I find, a lot of parents, most parents I interact with, we genuinely want the best for our kids, and we're trying to find a way through it. Maybe, I don't know if it's fair to say more so than even when you and I would have been kids. I think parents are really trying to be intentional, but we just struggle finding clarity on how to do it, right? So it's a complicated world. So I think parents are desperately want what's best for their kids. That's what I see over and over again.
Yeah. And do you find, I know when the kids are younger, you get a lot of help, right?
Sure, yeah.
But then I find when they start heading towards middle school and high school, as a parent, you don't get as much help, and you're more at a loss, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I've seen that from, I'm not there yet with my own kids. I've certainly seen that on the youth ministry side of it, where parents, feel isolated. And one of the best things, when we've had success doing parent ministry, one of the best things we've done is just getting parents in a room together. It's not so much about teaching them content.
Yeah.
It's about letting them hear from somebody else saying, man, my kid is going off the rails. Yo, yours too.
Yeah, thank goodness
we're not the only one, right? They're just so desperate, and especially in church world. There's this expectation that in this fear we put on ourselves that I don't want other people to know our family's junk, right? And how many of us have pulled into church on a Sunday morning and shut up, right? you mark it at the doors. Hey, everybody, isn't God great? Right? We feel like we have to put on that show. Whereas we don't expect anybody else to put on that show.
No, we just want others to be authentic.
So I feel like something about church world complicates that more, where we maybe have a little more reticence to being open and saying, hey, we're having a hard time right now.
Yeah. Right.
And so we all end up putting up these walls where we all want each other's help and support, but we're maybe a little afraid to go there.
Yeah, and that's true. Yeah. And what is one thing that you could say to those that are serving in youth ministry as volunteers to encourage them?
Youth ministry volunteers are my favorite people on the
Yes,
planet.
I figured they would be. Awesome. And now's your opportunity to encourage them because they're watching.
We have, I've got this whack of junior high and senior high leaders that are my heroes, especially after the last year and a half through COVID. Anybody who has stuck it out volunteering in any ministry through all this is a hero, period. The amount of extra effort it has taken. What I would say is that, especially through these times, and there have probably been so many nights where you felt like you've walked away, you've got back to the car, and you're like, that was pointless. And you've texted kids or called kids and they haven't called back. And you've been praying for a kid and they still walk away, or you worked hard to prep the message or prep the small group and it fell flat. It makes an eternal difference. It might not feel like it week to week, but your investment in those kids is making this massive difference in eternity. Sometimes these stories take years to come around. Some of them never will, but a lot of them will. The difference you're making in these kids' lives is huge, and they can't always articulate it at 12 or 15 years old. But man, the kingdom is singing every time you're sitting down and praying for, spending time with loving on teenagers.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Jeremy. I think that many people needed to hear that, especially after this past year. So, yeah. Thank you so much for being here again. I love it. I love sitting and chatting with you and talking about youth and kids, because you are just so wise and you've studied a lot and you know a lot and you've been invested in their lives, which you just see the fruit of that. So
Thanks so much.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
For those joining us, I hope that you were encouraged by Jeremy and what he had to say about resiliency. There's a link for the book he mentioned, and that will be available in our show notes. If you're listening to the audio version of this podcast, remember to subscribe on your podcast app. And for those watching the video edition, subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you don't miss an episode. Also, hop onto the discussion by following us on social media. You can find us on Instagram at 412 Canada. Looking forward to next time. Thanks for joining us.
All right. Pause.
Stop.
And scene.
And scene.